Good afternoon, everyone. ICA Pragyajan, on behalf of the Professional Skill Enrichment Committee of ICAI, welcome all the participants in today's webcast, Mind Mapping, Decoding Client Physiology. First of all, I welcome today's resource person, CA Rupal Garg sir, and other present over here. And it's a great privilege me to introduce today's speaker, CA Rupal sir. He is a chartered accountant, educator, and practicing partner at SMDA and Associates. He is an approved faculty of Board of Studies of ICAI. He delivered training on artificial intelligence, orientation and management and communication skill for CA students. He also served as a guest faculty for Regional Capacity Building and Knowledge Center, Mumbai, where he trained senior C&AG officers on IND-AS. He has worked extensively with government bodies, including the Ministry of MSME, Ministry of Finance, and SEBI, as a resource person of programs on GST, entrepreneurship, investment awareness, and skill development. He's a UGC net qualified academician, and he is also taught at leading institutes such as Sharda University and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University. He is a dynamic speaker. He has addressed national conferences, ICI initiatives, and GST seminar across the India. And he is an authored publication on GST, exports, public procurement, and India startup ecosystem. So great, sir. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the topic. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, a very hearty namaskar and good afternoon to everyone who has joined. I am grateful to the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee for having asked me to do this session where we can discuss about mind mapping, decoding client psychology. Pragya ma'am said very nice things about me, but I truly believe that it is due to the endeavors of the committee that we can actually come up together at a platform where all of us can have a meaningful discussion about things that really matter, probably in our professional lives as well. As a student, we never got to learn these sort of different psychologies, and it is only with experience that we got to know about what different types of psychologies should we understand when we have these discussions with our clients. So again, my gratitude to the respected chairman, sir, CA Jayashara, sir, and vice chairman, CA Abhay Chachar, sir, for having brought us together for this wonderful opportunity. Also to the committee and fellow moderator, fellow colleague, Pragya ma'am. Thank you for introducing me with such a grace. And let's start the discussion. My dear colleagues, my dear friends, first of all, let me guarantee that the next 2 hours that we're about to witness are going to be a very, very powerful session that we definitely would take a lot from this. Decoding client psychology. Now, first of all, why do we actually need this, right? All of us have certain interactions with our clients on a daily basis. And one of the biggest things that probably happen is that we unknowingly sort of say something or express something which might or might not reflect the true intentions that we have. Yesterday, I think there was a wonderful session on decoding what the client communication is about and what it is not about. So, uh, taking further from there, before we start our session, let's do a quick recap of what all are the prerequisites for joining this session, right? So there are about 4 prerequisites that all of us must adhere to in order to get the best out of this session. The first and foremost prerequisite is that we're all humans. Of course, we are all humans, right? And this session is meant only for the human species. Yes, that's a very, very common thing to do. Now, second is that we all have 24 hours. Yes, of course, all of us have 24 hours, the given time frame by the Almighty to all of us. The third prerequisite is that we're all alive. Yes, surely we're all alive. We still have a lot of things to achieve, a lot of things to do in our future times. And the fourth and most important thing is that we haven't met our creator as of yet. That's probably one of the most biggest realizations that we can do. And once we sort of fulfill all these four criterias, let's start to actually address the elephant in the room, that why do we need human psychology, this study, to understand the clients better and to actually make the client relationship last longer. uh, I'll give you a very simple promo of what we are about to cover in the next 2 hours. Well, we'll have a 3 point agenda through which we learn 7 laws of psychology, client psychology, and 12 types of architectures of clients that we can encounter anytime we're going to discuss. I was approached by the committee about 15 days ago for this session, and when we agreed on the topic, I started doing my research. And to my utter surprise, there was a very, very, very huge shortage of real literature which was available on client psychology. Now, I genuinely felt that there's a demand and supply gap there, because people genuinely want to know about how clients react and what we can actually do to make the relationship, CA or client relationship, better. So I thought of taking some support from master classes from the best publications that are there, and I'll give due credit where it's due. And let's start by establishing the agenda that we're about to have this session. So we are going to have 3 point agenda for this session. The first one, that after this session, we are going to learn to read clients before they speak. Okay. So that is to predict human behavior. We all know that through AI, we can predict, the LLMs can predict what the next text is going to be about. But AI and EI should always go hand in hand. I believe that in this era of AI, we cannot forget EI. EI, of course, being emotional intelligence. So before my client speaks up a thing, I must be able to predict what the client actually would say, and that actually going to give me a space of how to react. Take a very simple example of a batsman who's playing a fast bowler like Brett Lee, or maybe Shoaib Akhtar, or maybe Mitchell Stark. Now, the reaction time is very less, but it is the skill and ability of the batsman to guess what sort of deliveries the bowler is about to bowl, so that the batter himself can prepare for what is about to come. So that is a skill that we must all develop, to understand what hidden motivations or fears or assumptions that drive client behavior, and that is, of course, beyond the documents and the data. So the client and the relationship between C and client is not just for documents, it's not just on papers, it's something that we can have one on one. Second thing, we are going to predict reactions before arise. Now, as a student, when I was studying audit and ITSM, of course, there was one very, very important lesson taught to us, that all of us need to be proactive rather than reactive. And that holds true even now, that we need to be proactive in our approach of what sort of problems may arise, what sort of situations may come up, what sort of preparations do we need to do beforehand. Now, all of us are, I believe, that thoroughly prepared for the Direct Tax Code, the Income Tax Act 2025, that is about to kick in on 1st April 2026. We are thoroughly prepared for the financial statements preparation that is to be done in the NCE format. That is again was made optional this year, again to be made compulsory next year. We are thoroughly prepared for the amendments. We are thoroughly prepared for the changes that are about to come. But are we actually prepared how to react to the situations that the client might undergo, how to react to the situations that the client might face, how to react to the reactions of the client? So, predicting reactions before any deadlock arises is what is are going to be the second agenda of the day. And the third and the most important thing I should believe is that we should always try to respond strategically and not emotionally. That is one big thing to say. Now, I must also establish here that as chartered accountants, we have got the luxury to sort of develop a relationship or an understanding with the client, because we do have that time in our hands. We're not retail suppliers, right? Nobody comes to us saying, sir, wo balance sheet dijiye, wo kaisi wali balance sheet है, and I ask someone from my staff, wo shelf se do balance sheets उठाओ, आप sir को balance sheet दीजिए. That does not happen with us. We are not retail counters. We do have dedicate time to ask questions of the client, to let the client understand about our working style, and also understand what client's working method is, and to have sort of develop a relationship that can actually benefit both of us. So this is going to be our 3 point agenda for the session, that we are going to learn to read clients before they speak. We're going to predict reactions before problem arises, and we are going to learn how to respond strategically and not emotionally. So, having established this agenda, there's one very important thing that we must also understand, is that people are not difficult. Well, when I was starting my practice, one of the common things that I heard from some of the seniors were that client does not want to pay. Client wants only to get the things freeloaded. The client does not want to do this. The client does not want to do any compliance. The client does not want to do this. Now, I often wonder whether practice with such type of clients is going to be sustainable or not. Well, at the core of it, I did realize, and I must make a note to myself, that ultimately every client is a human itself. They all react the way they react because they are supposed to react that way. And this is something that, if we realize very early, it is going to make things very, very, very easy for us. People react the way they are because of the situations that they have been through, because of the POV that they carry. And once I sort of step into their shoes, or maybe start to think from their perspective, things become really, really easy for me, because then I can not just predict, I may even justify the behaviors. And of course, there's nothing which justifies wrong behavior. But if people behave wrongly on their part, there's of course a reason to it. And as chartered accountants, as I mentioned, that we have got that ample amount of time in our hands to observe the client, and to observe the reactions that the client carries. People are, again, as I said, people aren't difficult. And once you understand these laws of psychology, you're definitely going to be able to predict, how to understand, uh, what are the laws that are governing the inner world of a person. So let's start to understand these 7 laws of client psychology. Now, I must give due credit to one of the master classes, one of the most famous, probably, uh, book authored by Mr. Dale Carnage, on how to win friends and influence people. It's a masterclass, absolutely, and I had the fortune of reading it this year earlier. And when I found that there is no adequate literature on client psychology throughout the internet, so I took some help from that book. And 7 laws is something that I propose to propound, these 7 laws, and you'll find that these laws are actually going to be very helpful. These 7 psychological principles are going to transform your client relationship and build lasting trust as a chartered accountant. The first and foremost law, sir, everybody must adhere to, and that law is that you cannot win an argument with a client. Sir, your knowledge might be supreme. Whatever you have learned, of course, the client might not know even 1% of that, but sir, you do not argue with the client. The client does not pay to argue. That's the most simplest of the things that we might make a mental note of. That the client is not going to pay you to argue. And I'm sure that any client who comes to you and has a thing to say probably might also counter you on different things, might also dismiss you on the things that you suggest. At the end of the day, you as a professional are not going to win an argument and still retain the person. There are, of course, two choices. You can either win the argument or win the person, famously said. So you can win the argument and lose the person, and the choice is yours. So it never pays to win the argument. And also, there's this paradox that people carry with themselves. Of course, as chartered accountants, we also carry the paradox of being right. So uh, there's a very famous study, and which included uh, Albert Einstein as well. The study focused on how much do we say on a daily basis and how much of it is correct. Okay. That's a very simple study. The study concluded that a person of an IQ of Albert Einstein himself, he was only right about 60% of the things that he said entire the day. Now, can you imagine that 40% of the things that Mr. Albert Einstein said during the day could be about anything, not just about physical physics laws, could be about daily routine, mundane things. So, whatever things he was talking about, 40% of the things, even Albert Einstein got them wrong. It was not right. And that probably shatters the biggest myth that all of us carry, probably the biggest burden that all of us carry on our shoulders, that we're always right. No, sir. Any person is right only about half of the time. So, whatever they're saying, and I'm not talking about technical things. I'm not talking about the provisions of the law. I'm not talking about the consulting that the CA often does. They are right about it most of the time. So, but the second part of it, having an argument with the client is not going to pay you anywhere. You're not going to retain the client. You're not going to satisfy your ego first of all, because let's be honest, uh, an egoistic person can never satisfy his ego. He's only going to ruin things for himself. So first of all, as a chartered accountant, what I must propose here is that let's seek agreement on the things that we disagree. First of all, victory is not going to take you anywhere. This is a simply moral victory. This is something in your head. This is not a real victory. Okay, the real victory is when there is cooperation between the two people. The real victory is when the client starts to agree with you. The real victory is not when you school the client. So the client is not paying you to get schooled, right? The client is paying you to advise you in the best possible manner. And cooperation is more valuable, I believe, than correctness. To some extent, I must also acknowledge that I have been carrying this sort of paradox for a long, long time, only to discover that there's another point of view as well. So the first law that I propose is that you cannot win an argument. Don't get into an argument with the client, and things are going to be just fine. So that's the first law that we must adhere to. The second law is that you must make the client feel important, and that's really basic thing to establish. Is that uh, discuss before dismiss. That's the headline that I must put. Discuss before dismiss, as in you might have a lot of clients, you might not have adequate time for each one of them, but at the same time you must make them feel important. How do you make them feel important? uh, First of all, for any client who has got some age at their side, some experience at their side, I must say, you must acknowledge their experience, and that's what I've been doing for quite a few time now. So any senior citizen, any person who carries experience on their side, I genuinely find some way to express appreciation for the things that they have done. And it's a genuine appreciation. Any made up appreciation you can see on the face. It appears instantly. So I find any simplest reason to appreciate their experience and the things that they have done in the most simplest of the way. It generally happens uh, in a very innocent manner, and it opens the client like nothing. The client starts to feel at sort of ease. They start to feel important. I must also listen to the journey that they have been through. My colleagues might counter me on this, saying that, sir, is it practically possible to listen to the journey that each client has made? Because let's face it, we have a lot of clients and we do not have that time. So that's why I made this first prerequisite. The first prerequisite was that we're all humans, and the second one was that we all have 24 hours. Why are we actually spending time on knowing about things that do not matter because of this fantastic instrument that we carry in our hands? We all know about things that are happening thousands of miles away, but we don't know what's happening to our client. And a client who actually is dependent on us for all his compliances, for all his advisory work. So it's important to listen to what the client wants to say. It's important to listen to what they are holding inside of them. It's important to listen to their story, their journey. And that is actually going to give you a very good context of why they are the way they are. Why they are the way they are. Because let's be honest, a client could be an anxiety driven client. Okay, he could be pushing you again and again and again for different, for very basic simplest of the things. For example, I'll give you a very very good example which is very also timely, that since probably 12th of December this year, most of us have been receiving those messages by income tax department asking us to review our income tax return. Okay, now, sir, your client comes to you rushing, and they don't know this basic difference between a notice and a communication. Okay, so they feel that it's a notice issued to them. And of course, they start to worry, they start to panic, and then they start to push you. Sir, please reply to this. And you, in your head, you know already that whatever you have done is absolutely correct. There's nothing to worry about. And what you can actually do is simply ignore the message, right? That's the only thing that you can do. But the client wants you to take some action on this. Now, what do you do? What do you do? It's important to realize that every client must feel important. It's important to realize that if they are going to feel important, they are going to come up to you next time. So discuss before dismiss. Okay, we are definitely in a later part of the session, we are going to take up as to how to deal with such kind of situations. So that's my humble request. Okay, there's this very very important thing which is called trust. Okay, and I think trust in any case is of paramount importance. It's the biggest asset, biggest goodwill that you can carry. A CA office specifically, okay, we do have a lot of assets, and the biggest asset that any CA firm can carry is the goodwill, is the trust that the client have. And those trusts are created, these respects are created only by mutual collaboration, meaningful collaboration. So the second part, which second law which I propose to uh, put forward, is to make the clients feel important. At least discuss things with them before dismissing them. Okay, so that's the second law. Third law is that you might have clients which sort of are very 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 adamant in whatever they feel. Okay, they sort of carry this ego, and they have a certain view of things, and then they do not want to change their perspective at all. Okay, at this point, I am going to request a very simple thing, that the best thing that we can do is to avoid a deadlock, and that deadlock is going to be avoided by creating some momentum with early agreement. What is going to be early agreement? A very very simple thing that you can do is start with a yes. Okay, we have another law which is law number 4, and that actually helps in this manner, and that is to appeal to the higher, the noble cause, the higher motive. Okay, so let's say there is a disagreement between the client and myself on the presentation. Okay, and there are a few things that I want to disqualify in the I want to qualify in the audit report, and the client feels that such qualifications are not required and are unnecessary. Now, I, being my professional and having relying on my professional judgment, I certainly do not require any sort of schooling from the client. That's the first thing. But I should also be humble enough to acknowledge what the client is saying. Okay. Now, to enable, to avoid any sort of deadlock, because we've had some quite a few instances in history in very very famous cases. For example, one of the cases was with uh, Kingfisher. So when the auditor wanted to question the going concern concept of Kingfisher, the first thing that the management did was sort of ask the this very very simple question: how dare you question this going concern? Do you know who runs this company? Do you know who's the promoter of the company? And there was a deadlock. There was a deadlock. How to resolve that deadlock? The first thing is to create momentum with early agreement, which means that uh, let's start to agree on the basic things first. And the basic things are always going to be the ones with higher motives. What are the higher motives? So let us sit together with the client and agree to the fact that both of us want that the company should not be facing any penal consequences. Yes or no? The client, of course, is going to say yes. Okay. Second part. both of us agree that the only way that the company does not face penal consequences is that if the company actually reports its true nature of business. Yes or no? The client is again going to say yes. So you start with these three or four questions that are actually going to help you to build some early consensus. And you know what? When you start to agree on a few things, the client also realizes that he is being treated nicely, and the client also starts to agree with you on a lot of things as well. And probably that's the best way to solve any deadlock. So that's law number three. That start with a yes, build consensus, and then move forward before tackling the difficult part first, right? So before addressing the elephant in the room, let's start the calves, or let's start the smaller ones which are roaming around, right? Law 4 is going to help you in this. Law 4 is appeal to what truly matters. Okay, beyond rules and regulations, what truly matters is the safety of the client's concern, right? It's the pride of the clients that must be saved, the reputation of the client, and the peace of mind that they must carry. So, the best way to do is if you can connect compliance to business security in terms of uh, when your business actually reports true and fair, okay, they report everything which is true, uh, you have peace of mind. The department is not going to question you. Even if they question you, you always have the answers to put in place. Then the decisions that they take as of now, the decisions should always focus on the long term prospects. Now the client might be thinking on a short term prospect, and they might want to uh, solve the problem which is at hand in first. You, being a professional, are looking at the bigger picture. So let's have the client focus on the bigger picture. And when you focus on the bigger picture, probably a lot of deadlock can be avoided. And if all of your advice is framed around this peace of mind, okay, because peace of mind, let's be honest that the one thing that most clients are likely to agree on are that they want to sleep peacefully at night. Okay, that might of course differ with different ages of client. Now you have Gen Z clients as well, so they are restless and they want to achieve things very quickly. But at the end of the day, most of the clients would agree that they want to have peace of mind. So if you frame your entire advice around that part, you are most likely to get a positive response or an affirmation from the clients, right? Law 5 is very important, that you should always give the client an option, right? Because you know what, the simplest thing that you can do, and it's not manipulation, let me tell you, it's not manipulation in any manner. It's getting people to do, it's not getting people to do what you want, it's getting people to do what's right for them. Okay, and how you can actually do is you can give choices to people, right? So for example, one of the client, he came up and he wanted some advisory related to GST. Now in GST, a very simple case arise that's a in my case, my GSTR 2B must reconcile with my GSTR 3B. That's a very simple fact, okay? Or my ITC taken in GSTR 3B must not be more than what is available in GSTR 2B, okay? Now, in some cases, when the client is genuine and it is the fault of the seller that they have not uploaded their GSTR 1 on time, and which because of which the ITC is not populated, auto populate in GSTR 2B. Now, what do? Do you take that ITC or not? Because if you do not take that ITC, it's a monetary loss to the client. And if you take that ITC, you're definitely going to get a notice around which you'll have to reply. So what do? You don't take a decision. That's the best part. You don't take a decision. You put in the facts placed right in front of the client, and then you let them choose which option you want to go with. Because at the end, when a person feels that they have made a choice, they feel more connected to it, right? As a child, when a child is told that look, this is the first option, that you can watch television for some time, and then you can do your play, uh, and then you do the homework. So that's the first choice. The second choice is that You do the homework, then you can watch the television, and then you can play. So which one would you want? The first or the second? Now, anyhow, the child is going to do the homework, right? But only the chronology changes. And now, in the first or the second part, when the second part, the child agrees that I'll do the homework first, and then I'll go to see the television or maybe play around. In that way, you have not imposed anything. You have not told the child, you have not told the human what to do. You have actually taken suggestion from them. And once I have made a decision, I am more likely to respect that decision. I'm more likely to adhere to my word. I'm more likely to be loyal to what I've decided. So the most important thing is that you take the client, you make the client take ownership for the decisions. And this is the ownership principle. What is the ownership principle? That people defend the decisions they believe they have made. And I must acknowledge at this point, this is not manipulation at any stage. This is not manipulation. This is only making people take the choice. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's their business. We must also realize it's their business. They have made it with their heart and soul, and they must be the ones who, the clients must be the one who take the decision as to how to carry it forward. So you always give them a choice. Your role is of a guide. And you know what is going to happen in this case? When you give them certain kind of choices, they are going to come to you saying, sir, you decide, you'll take the best decision. Now eventually you are the one taking the decision, but on their request, not on your behalf. So that's the most pleasant thing that you can do to a client, is not to impose anything, rather to make them make their take them their own decisions. And what is that the client becomes advocates for the solutions they helped create. Now the solution was there, but the solution was customized, crafted by the client themselves. So the client is actually going to take ownership for that decision, right? This was law number 5. Moving to law number 6. It's a very, very simple law, and it says simplify everything. Simplify everything, which means that you did not uh, complicate things. For example, if your client comes up to you and says, that we have got this notice, right? You cannot be starting to speak in language of sections to them, because they do not understand really the sections, right? And it's a very, very simple thing that technical jargons are not meant for clients. Imagine your situation if you're going to a doctor to visit, and the doctor, instead of telling you what's the ailment or what's the solution of it, he starts to throw random medical terms at you. You'll start feeling frustrated. You'll start feeling aghasted that why am I being told all these things? Why am I being told all these long, all these unnecessary terms? Just tell me whether this is curable or not. Just tell me what is the cure for it. Just tell me how to get over it. So that's simply the thing that we must also apply, is that we must not make things complex for the client. Sometime a professional might be motivated to make things complex so that the client sort of respects him. The client sort of thinks that, wow, such a technical person, wow, he knows everything. So that is not going to happen. That is simply not going to happen. Everybody who has come up to your office, who sat in front of you seeking your advice, is there to make their lives easier. And the best thing that you can do for them is to simplify, uh, not get into unnecessary complex things, right? Uh, you must recognize when there is resistance. Okay. People definitely avoid any sort of complex or heavy technical jargons. Okay, you can break it down into smaller and simple steps, and then that is going to allow you to reduce any sort of friction that you might happen, and you are going to gain cooperation from the client in a very simplest of the manner. So this was law 6. Coming to the next law, which is law 7, and the final law of client psychology, is that your emotional tone sets the standard. Sir, uh, this is also called the law of perception. Okay, wherein your first becomes your normal. Okay, the first message response that you do to the client becomes your speed. Okay, the first communication that you do with the client becomes your tone. So your emotional tone sets the standard. You might be having certain problems that you might be dealing with on a personal level. When these personal problems translate into your behavior with the client unnecessarily gets the load of something which he should not have been a part of. This is also called the mirror effect, where if you are aggressive in your communications, the client is also going to be aggressive. Okay. At the same point, what I must also put forward is that you also should not mirror the client's tone at the same time. Because many a time it happens, I have got different types of clients. Some of them are very aggressive in terms of what they're speaking, and they are very sort of pushy in terms of their demands and their requirements. I cannot be replicating their thought. I cannot be replicating their behavior. So the mirror effect should not be there. It does apply when a client seeks your guidance. So the best thing that you can do is to be calm, to be certain, and to be kind. Now it's easier said than done. It's very easier said than done. I do acknowledge that you cannot be calm all the time. You have certain problems that you're facing in certain different spheres. That problems cannot translate into your conversation. So what you need to do is you need to get into the POV of the other person. That's the easiest thing. And when you get into the POV of the other person, and when you see yourself in a third person's point of view, you are going to realize what sort of advice or what sort of tone the other person would appreciate from you. And that is actually going to be very helpful and meaningful for you. So these are the 7 laws that I propose to establish for mastering the art of client psychology. It is definitely going to 3x the trust factor. These seven are the 7 core principles. Okay. And 100% client satisfaction, I must say. Okay. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I must say that the simplest thing that we can do, okay, we cannot apply all these 7 principles at once. The simplest thing that we can do is we can apply these principles one by one. And whenever you hear something good, whenever you hear something that you agree on, the easiest and the best thing that you can do is you apply this one by one. I'll share my personal example. Happened with me about a week ago. We had a session where respected chairman sir of the committee, C.H. Chera sir, he was the speaker. And during the conversation, he mentioned about his principle of mobile phone, where he does not use his mobile phone for 12 hours. Okay. And that motivated me. That motivated me because I do also most of the problems they arise with the use of this mobile phone. So I started slowly, and it's been a week now, and I also have been practicing this mobile fasting, not 12 hours, but at least I've started with 8 hours, then 7 this then 9 hours, 10 hours. I'm currently at 10 hours. So for 10 hours of my time during my sleep, 1 hour before my sleep, 1 hour after my sleep, after I get up, I am not using my mobile phone. And that probably has reaped very good results for me. So the idea behind explaining this example is that you cannot be applying everything at once. If I wanted to apply this 12-hour principle, I would not have applied in one go, and the result would have been fatigue. The result would have been uh, disastrous. That I would have thought to myself that this principle does not work. The only thing that does not work is achieving everything at once. The tendency to do everything at once is something that is not going to work. So you need to have patience, first of all, which is again a true hallmark of a great chartered accountant. Secondly, what you need to have is phased implementations of the uh, thoughts that you have, of the queries that you have, of the ideas that you possess. So these are definitely going to help you in the long run. These 3 master principles. You can also transform your practice. Okay. Influence, when you try to create client influence, it's not about being right, it's about being heard, trusted, and followed. So if you want the client to follow you, if you want the client to trust you, if you want the client to hear you in a positive manner, so you can start today. You can start to apply one principle of all these 7 principles that I've explained. You can start with applying one principles at a time and see the results. If the results are positive, if you are true to the process and the results are positive, you can start to apply the second principle as well. And the growth, the progress is going to be in phases for sure. The process has to be simple. You cannot overcomplicate yourself as well. These, and it's a very simple 21-90 days rule. It says that when you follow anything for 21 days at once, it becomes your habit. And if you follow that same thing for 90 days without a miss, that becomes your lifestyle. So it's a 21-90 day rule that says if you practice anything for 21 days, it becomes your habit. And if you keep on practicing that for 90 days continuously, it becomes your lifestyle, and that is not going to be altered anytime. And then you see the results. You will see that the relationship with your clients uh, have become much better. The sense of trust is there, and also at the end of it, it translates into more monetary benefits for all of us, right? So this is how you can adapt these 12 these 7 principles of human psychology. Now moving forward, we have had 3 agendas, we have 7 principles, and now let's come to the 12 client archetypes. Out of my experience and out of my uh, being there in practice, I have jotted down about 12 types of clients that you might encounter, and how to satisfy each one of them, how to sort of navigate and strategize your working around each client is something that we are about to discuss in these sessions. Now, let us be honest in one thing, that once you sort of start to uh, face different types of clients in your daily practice, the one thing that first realize is that not everybody behaves in the same manner. Everybody has got different types of uh, sort of psychological build-ups, and the best way is to judge each person on its own. And as I've mentioned before, we're not offering any retail counter. We have got ample of our time to allow ourselves to judge which sort of client is this. All right. So let's start to discuss what type of clients we have and how to navigate through each type of client. The first one, and this is the first type of client that I saw personally in my practice, was the control seeker. This was the micromanager. Now, what is this micromanager? He's going to question you on everything. He's going to sort of ask you each and every minor detail. The client is not going to entirely dump everything on you. He is going to ask you questions, and at times those questions might irritate you. What to do in that case? First of all, understand the psychological profile of that person. Uh, what is the core motivation of doing that? Okay, you cannot be simply judging a person based on the emotional behavior that they have. You must also understand the what is the motivation that the client carries to behave in this certain manner. So, what is this control seeker trying to actually do? This control seeker uh, is trying to understand the mechanics of everything that happens. Okay, every recommendation that you have given, every advice that you've given, he wants to get into the detail of this. What is primary fear? His primary fear is that if he loses control, okay, he is not going to achieve the thing that he wants. So having the steering in their hand, having the steering in their hand is something that this control seeker wants. Okay, what is their behavioral signature? Micromanagement, questioning everything, frequent questioning. Okay, requesting detailed explanations, and at times written explanations. How do you how do you make out whether this person is a control seeker? There are some verbal cues. For example, they might say that, sir, what is this step about, what is this step about, what is this step about, and walk me through the entire process. This is something that they might say. And what are their non-verbal cues? For example, their body behaviors. They are leaning forward. Okay, they're not pushing back, they're not folding their hands sitting like this, they are leaning forward. Okay, they might take notes, they might review documents multiple times. Okay, go through the documents multiple times. And then usually this is found in people who have made their businesses right from the scratch. Okay, where do you find this type of trait? You find this trait in the first generation entrepreneurs generally. first generation entrepreneurs or founder level business people usually carry this set of mindset because again the reason for this is that they might have seen what how things can go wrong when they start to lose control, and they don't want to do in certainly in the case of their finances. Okay, how do you strategize against this control seeker? What are the effective strategies? You cannot let them affect your ego. That's the first rule. You cannot allow them to sort of get over yourself. Okay, what I also mean is that you cannot give them directives that do this or do that. You can follow the law number 5 that I propounded. What was the law number 5? That always give options. Always give them options. These people are going to love it when you give them options because they are decision makers. They're decision makers by heart. They're decision makers at their core. So when you give them options that look, we have got this situation, and this situation actually gives us these options, and you decide which one is the better one. They are going to love it. They are going to actually feel very very important, and they are going to feel that they have made the decision. Okay, so these sort of people are very aggressive. Okay, and aggressive in terms of they are not pushing you, but they really want everything to go perfect. Okay, they're sort of micromanagers. You also can say that they carry certain sort of OCD. So when you do communicate with them, it's also important that you communicate everything in written. You do not communicate anything oral basis, or I think this might happen. No, no, nothing of that thinking sort. They want everything affirmed. They want everything on a very clear, crisp basis. So crisp is the word that they're looking for. Okay, and the process must be transparent with them. You tell them that this is the expected time by which this thing should be over. This thing should get done, and once you're done with that, update them. Update them. Do not sleep on the conversations. Do not lose control of the conversation. This is very very important. Such a type of control seekers hate it when they are not taken into loop. So anything that you have to communicate in a very very timely manner, and give them visibility about the process without sort of getting them onboarded. For example, if you communicate with their team, always put them into CC. That way they'll know what is happening. They don't want to sleep on the conversations. Okay, so they respond positively when they are given some agency. Okay, make use of their micromanagement agency. They have this tendency of being a micromanager. They want to do everything on their own. So why not put a leverage on that? Why not take use or take advantage of that? Okay, position themselves as decision makers instead of being simple observers. So that way you can actually effectively navigate communication through a control seeker, right? So this is the first type of client that we might encounter, and this is how you can sort of navigate yourself dealing with that sort of client. The second type is a very very difficult type to handle. I must also acknowledge that the second type is a person who who's someone who carries some sort of ego because they have achieved something. Now this ego is not misplaced. At the same time, must also put this fact that this ego is not misplaced. They're not pushing their ego over you because they don't trust you. It's simply that they have achieved something, and they have this loss, this fear of losing these things that they have achieved after so much of hard work. Now this type of client is very oftenly found usually in government sector, right? In corporates, when they have started from the scratch, built up something, this sort of client always uh, sort of have something similarities with the first type, which is the controlling type. This is the ego protected, which is the experienced professionals. What is their core motivation behind behaving the way they do? Status preservations. You cannot look them down upon, and that's the biggest mistake that a professional can do. A professional should not be looking them down upon, should not be telling them that you are the expert of your field, but I am the expert of my field. Do not tell me what to do. that is going to ruin the conversation. That is going to ruin everything because they want to feel important. Okay, and the law number two is going to work very well here. That make them feel important. How do you identify this sort of client? It's very important to identify such sort of client because their primary fear is that if they are appearing uninformed or if they could make mistake, okay, that could damage their reputation that they have created out of so much hard work. So because of this reputation bubble that they're carrying, their responses are usually defensive. They do not accept all your advices, first of all, okay, and they might get into a debate with you at times. And whenever you advise anything to them, there are some verbal cues to this. For example, they might come up with this thing that I've been doing this for years. Okay, uh, they might address you as young man. Maybe happened to me quite often. They addressed me as young man. They told me that in my experience, or you know, I've been doing this for long enough, so I know everything. And at the same time, there are some non-verbal cues. What are those non-verbal cues? These type of clients usually are sitting laid back with their folded arms and tilted head. I must tell you, okay, it's a very common trait that I've seen. Tilted head. They're observing each and everything that you say, and they're not just observing; they're rather auditing each and everything that you say. And anything wrong that you might say, they might catch that and throw it at you back, and then they'll ask you for explaining this thing. So what sort of people have this trait? As I mentioned, maybe senior technocrats, okay, government officials might have this type of trait. Uh, Senior promoters, okay, established business owners, they might have this type of trait. Now, how to deal with such sort of people? How to navigate through their psychology? Very very simple. Very very simple. You simply use the art of refinement over correction. What do you mean by refinement over correction? Is that with such sort of ego protected experts, you cannot frame advice as your final directive. You again have to acknowledge their expertise first. Okay, saying that, and as I mentioned in one of the laws before also, that saying that, sir, look, yes, you've got the all the experience in the world, and I'm truly believe that whatever you're saying is right. What I also suggest is that we can do this thing in this particular manner. They are going to be likely to get onboarded with the things that have recommended to them. Okay, so the first thing that you must do with those ego protected experts is that you must acknowledge their experience. You must validate their track record. Whatever they have done, whatever they have achieved, please validate that, because that validation is probably something that they're seeking. Okay, not a lot of times we seek external validation, but at times when we seek and we don't get it, that might drive us crazy to some extent. To avoid this, please start validating whatever they've done. Recognize that the foundation that they have built through years of practice, through all the hard work that they have done, through all the efforts that they have taken, and whatever they have built, do not downplay upon them. That's a very very important do not. Okay, do not downplay upon them. Do not audit their intentions. Never come upon them saying that uh, you could have done this differently, because that is again going to exactly hurt where it matters the most, right? And you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. uh, you can definitely present some new approaches, responses to whatever changing regulations or market conditions. For example, now we have DPDP Act, right? And it's very important for chartered accountants as well, because now we are going to act as data fiduciary in a lot of times. And at this point, we have to sort of align our practice in terms of the regulations of the DPDP Act, in terms of the consent that we are going to take from the clients, in terms of the engagement letter that we're going to draft with the clients. Now, assume that you're a DPDP consultant who is going to consult to a senior chartered accountancy firm. Okay. Now, the very, very senior CA, they might carry all the experience that they have. But again, when it comes to DPDP, they probably know nothing and certainly not better than you. How do you position yourself? You do not position yourself as a masiha. You do not position yourself as someone who knows it all. You position yourself as someone who is going to take advantage of the experience that the gentleman carries, and through that experience, you try and put in place the non-negotiable part. Okay, what is the non-negotiable part? The consent and everything. That is the non-negotiable part. You put that place in part in place, and then ask them to frame around suggestions, because again they're going to love it when you uh, follow their orders rather than they following your orders. And it's not really a choice of who follows whose order. It's at the end something that both of you want to do, is that you want to uh, engage meaningfully to this, and you want to contribute meaningfully to this assignment, and get some monetary benefit out of it. And at the same time, they definitely want the compliances to be put in place. So frame them as the decision maker. This is somewhat closer to what the first type of uh, client does. But there's again a difference between the control seeker and the ego protected expert. It is also important to mention that not all of the clients are going to be of one exact manner. There could be hints of uh, overlapping between the client types. You position yourself on building your approach, enhancing the existing framework. Okay. You do not tell that you fix something. You do not tell that you correct something. You do not tell that everything that was happening up till now was wrong. So that is the least last thing that they want to hear, is that whatever they've been doing up till now was wrong. What you do is you invite their suggestions, you invite their collaboration, you invite their inputs, and then based on their inputs, you put in your refinements, and then forward your suggestions. I think that is going to last in a really, really positive manner. So I think this type of client is not difficult to handle. It's just a difficult client. Okay. Moving forward to the third type of client, most of us also have this type of client. This is the overload avoider. Overload avoider is someone who is an overwhelmed client, right? Sir, today is 30th of December. Tomorrow is the due date for filing of income tax returns for assessment year 25-26, financial year 24-25. And some of the clients are yet to present their accounting books of records. What do you do? What do you do? You dismiss them? You dismiss them? So you need to understand whether the client is a bona fide client or a mala fide client in this manner. Is he not able to provide the documents, or is he not able to provide you the required communication because he does not want to do that and he wants to delay it to the last second? Or you feel that he's an overwhelmed client, that he has got a lot of things at their hand, and they probably are not delegating their tasks enough to manage them in a proper manner. So what do you do? First of all, you need to also realize that this type of clients are going to come to you at all times, and whenever they are going to come, they are going to come in a rush. They're going to come in a urgency. Okay, this is the overwhelmed client, and they have taken their time out of their busy schedule to come and greet you, come and meet you, and seek your help in this manner. What is their psychological profile? Why are they behaving this way? Because the mental fatigue they are carrying is what they're managing multiple priorities and struggling with cognitive bandwidth, which means that they have a lot of things at their hand and they're not able to cope up with everything. Their primary fear is that cognitive overload, which means thinking too much and processing too much at once. It creates paralysis, means it leads you to nowhere. When you're doing a lot of things at once, you're effectively doing nothing. So that's not an ideal position to get into. The volume of compliance requirements, they exceed their processing capacity, which means that uh, they are not able to process everything. Okay. It's very simple to identify such type of clients. For example, they could be delaying your responses. Okay, the messages that you send or the communications that you send, you don't get the response in time. Whenever the data is submitted, that data is incomplete in most respects. For example, the data could be coming up without matching the bank statements, okay, without depreciation being charged on the assets, without probably all the payables being acknowledged, right? So there could be an ample of problems that this overload avoider could be facing. And what they want is to avoid your calls. They want to avoid your communication, and they want to not fall into this compliance part. What is the general response? The general response is that you filter out this type of client. Okay, that's a general response that happens. And I'm proposing a very different response. What I'm proposing is that, first of all, you must understand what are their verbal cues. Why are they behaving this way? Uh, they often tell you that I'll get back to you, I'll tell you. And one of the very important traits, very, very key traits is that they, instead of, if you ask for that data, instead of providing the data, they often point out that, sir, I already have given you this. I've already told you this. This is already done. Why are you asking me again for this? So, this type of clients uh, are very, very easy to manage, I must say. But the only thing that you can do is you can delegate such type of clients to your staff, and simplification strategy is going to work from them. One mail at a time, one task at a time, and one deadline at a time. If you have any call to action, CTA, if you have, you can do one communication with them, and that communication you can fix a deadline. You can also assume that the deadline is going to be breached several times. The easiest way to handle or tackle this type of client is not to engage yourself in the handling part. This is something that I must acknowledge, that if you spend your substantial time in handling such type of client, you're not going to go anywhere. Why? Because they are not going to be very regular in your communication. So what you need to do is probably delegate that to one of your staffs. Regular follow-ups with them are very, very important. Give them one task at a time, one deadline at a time, and that deadline has to be very, very, very specific. Also, try and put in some punitive actions or punitive penalties in place. Not at first, but gradually, this is going to help you in a big manner. Because when you bulk them or when you dump a lot of requirements on them at once, they start feeling overwhelmed, and that overwhelming feeling is not going to get any support to you on their behalf. So one thing at a time, okay? For example, on Monday, if you request bank statements, fix a date by which you should get the bank statements, okay? 2 days later, you can ask the invoice copies. When that is done, then request the expense receipts. One thing at a time is going to get you things done. And also at the same time, I definitely should acknowledge that I should not be spending my critical time at this type of client, because when they are going to have their time on their hand, they're going to come. When they're not going to have their time, definitely they're going to avoid. So, this type of clients are going to delay. It's rather beneficial to delegate such type of client to one of your staffs rather than rather than filtering such type of client at once. Okay. Now, most of the clients of this category are bona fide. I must also acknowledge that these clients, they frequently apologize for their behavior. They frequently apologize for the delay in the work that they're doing. So that means that their intention is not to beat the deadline or exceed the deadline. Their intention is rather to make the compliance come through, but just because of their hectic schedule, they're not able to do that. So you need to tackle this type of client very, very carefully. And I'm sure once you break the things into pieces, simplify everything, which was law number 6. If you simplify everything, then this is going to work in a very, very simple manner, right? Let's go to the next one, which is a very, very, very common, frequent client that all of us face. I also spoke about it some time ago. This is the anxiety driven client. Okay. Sir, this year, 31st of March 2025, the financial year ended. By 1st of April, you must have the income tax utilities placed, must have the income tax returns start to be filed. Did it happen? No. Not on the first. Second, no. Third, no. Fourth, no. Fifth, no. The income tax portal did not start accepting income tax returns till 28th of May 2025, which means about 1.5 months were wasted because of this. Who is to panic? Who is to panic? The anxiety driven Form 16 client who gets bank interest, and the only task that they want to have is to claim a refund of the deduction that they've got, which could not be saved because of 15G, 15H. That's the only type of anxiety that they're facing. This is a very, very typical example that most of us face in our offices. What is their core motivation for this anxiety, this worried uh, complier? They are probably worried about things that might not even matter that much. They are worried about things that might not even make too much of a difference. But then they are worried. And the fact is that they are not worried themselves. They also make you worry about the task. What is their core motivation behind this? Start to understand their POV. Okay. Their core motivation is that safety and certainty dominates their decision making. These are the type of investors that you see in Indian households who invest most of their earnings in fixed deposits. Despite all the bull run that the market has, they're not going to come up and invest a single penny in the market. Why? Because they always want the reassurance of having their principal safe, and that's a absolutely justified behavior. Okay, there's no one saying that this behavior is not justified. This is absolutely justifiable given given the kind of journey that they have had, right? One very important thing to learn is that clients take decisions emotionally and justify it later logically. So what is their core motivation behind taking this decision? Is that they seek reassurance. Okay, they seek protection from regulatory exposure. The very thought of getting an income tax or a GST notice, the very thought sort of freezes their mind, and they starts to panic. They never want to get into the sort of zone of penalties, scrutinies, reputation damage that might happen, and any notices or audits that they might have faced in the previous years also might sort of motivate this type of behavior. They might have a very salty past experience because of which now they're extra vigilant, extra cautious about anything going forward. Their behavioral signature is very simple: repeated follow ups. Okay. You're getting one call from them in the morning, second call in the afternoon, third call in the night, and then fourth message drop they'll do at the night. The entire day, they're going to follow up. The next day, same thing. The next day, same thing. They'll even turn up at your office uninvited. And such type of client, they are going to panic near deadlines. And let me give you a very, very practical example that I faced. That this year itself, many of the clients, they started to worry about June itself, because in June, most of the clients are aware that as soon as the 15th of June crosses and the income tax 26 AS is updated with the TDS credits that they're going to have, most of the filing starts at that point. And even if there is a delay of 1 or 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, they're going to panic. What are they? What are the verbal cues? How do you justify, or how do you identify such type of client? They are repeatedly asking about the penalties. They're repeatedly asking you about the consequence of non-compliance. They are restless. They give you a lot of messages. Okay, they are looking here and there. Okay, they're not just calling you. They might also call some other CA. They might call some other professional. They might call some other relative of theirs. Okay, What is their belief is that everything is risky. Now, those anxiety driven clients, they have this psychology because of some behavior, that something that has happened to them in the past, usually, or something that has happened to their known person, and they don't want to get into that type of thing. What is the best way to deal with such type of clients? Discuss before dismiss. As I mentioned, law number two, discuss before dismiss. First of all, acknowledge their concerns. You cannot be telling them that whatever you are worrying about is useless. No, that's not the right approach, because to them it's important. To you, it's a everyday task. To them, it's very very important. So acknowledge their concerns that they're carrying. Okay, provide them clear timelines. Very 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 clear, very very specific timelines. And the best thing about these type of clients is that once you give them a deadline, it may be a far deadline, but once you give them a deadline, they're not going to bother you about this deadline again. Usually, usually, of course, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, once you give them a deadline that on this type of date, you don't say that I'll do it soon. Soon is not a word. Soon is not a word that they want to know. Soon is I'll do it later, or I'll do it now. I'll do it tomorrow. This is not a word that they want to hear. Specific. Be very, very, very specific that 15th of January, 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., your work is going to be done and you're going to be handed over the receipt of that. And you love that. You love the amount of calmness that you can see on their face. Having specific deadlines acknowledged with them is going to do magic, is going to do wonders with such type of clients. You can offer them assurance, you can offer them reassurance that uh, we have a lot of staff, we have good resources, we know your case, and this is going to be tackled before the deadline. Don't say that we'll take care of it. You don't worry, we'll take care of it. Saying you don't worry, we'll take care of it is as useless as saying chat gpt do not hallucinate in a prompt. If it is going to hallucinate, it is going to hallucinate, right? You don't tell a person do not worry if he's already a worried person. Instead, offer them in clear categorical terms that we have got this etiquette time in hand. This process is something that we have done over the years, and we know how much time this is going to take. Okay, and also get their work done. Such type of people usually get their work done at priority basis, and as a professional, usually you are the ones who sort of feel frustrated because you have devoted time, your precious time of a deadline time, to something which is not important at this moment. For example, if a client has a GST notice for which the due date is, let's say, mid of January, okay, and they want you to deal it now, you're very occupied with the income tax returns and very occupied with the GSTR 9 9C annual filings or MCROC filings. How do you politely deny them? You do not deny them, first of all. You're very polite in your conversation. You say that, yes, I acknowledge that this notice is very important. You must reply it on a timely basis. However, we have studied your notice, and what we are going to do is by 10th of January evening, your notice is going to be filed. Your reply is going to be filed. Don't worry about it. Don't say don't worry about it, and we'll take care of it. So that is probably going to ease them. That is probably going to make them feel a little better and a little sort of at ease. And the tone is going to be, again, very very important. Your tone cannot be dismissive. So as I said before, discuss before dismiss, right? The next type of client that we say is generally something some that we have all faced, is the cost focused optimizer. Sir, paisa kitna lagega isme? Sir, how much he keeps on repeatedly asking, how much. Now it's a very 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 genuine client. I must tell you that this type of client is not something that we must dismiss again. He's a very 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 cost focused optimizer, which means that he wants to get the best out of it. Why does he behave like this? Okay, how the cost optimizer works, how the cost focused optimizer works. He always wants to get you to explain in clear categorical terms How much is this going to cost? What is their behavior pattern? Why do they keep on focusing on the cost? Why do they keep on focusing on the fees? Yes, because they've had a bad experience in the past. Why do people behave the way they do? Because they've had an experience similar to that in the past. They might have had a case where they expected certain amount to be spent, and after the case was done, probably the case was decided in their favor or not, but they have had to spend a lot more than expected. And now there's a very popular saying in Hindi, which is दूध का जला छाछ भी फूक कर पीता है. दूध का जला छाछ भी फूक कर पीता है means that someone who has had a bad experience, he is going to take some corrective actions, or he is going to be proactive rather than reactive, as I mentioned before. So his motivations are very, very clear. Also, uh, what this type of person can do, he might constantly negotiate with you in terms of repeatedly asking you to revise your quotations, repeatedly asking you to charge lower fees. He might also come to you saying that XY is charging this much and you're charging this much. You see, if he is cost optimizer in terms of paying what is genuine, that's a good sign. But you must also tackle it very, very carefully when the person starts to do this comparison shopping or vendor comparison, because this is not going to be something that you must appreciate, or you must uh, you know uh, submit yourself to. If he asks what your best price, a usual tactic that most people uh, commonly follow is that 1.5x the fees, and then lower the fees, just so that their person's ego is satisfied that we have got the thing at a cheaper price. I do not support this tactic that you do 1.5x first, and then you bring it down to 1.2x or 1x maybe. So because simply there could be, if such person is doing vendor shopping, he could be also doing customer shopping. He could be doing client shopping. He could be well asking your other clients, what are you charging from them? And if that is known in the market that a CA or a professional is charging different amount from different people of the same work, not going to create a good reputation. So the best tactic to deal with such type of person is to explain them in clear and categorical terms the punitive actions that might be taken if this compliance is not met. That's the best part. That's the easiest and the most simplest thing that you can do. Uh, you know, their general assumption is that cheap is always the best. You have to shatter that assumption in terms of uh, let's not talk about the fees all times. Let's talk about what value addition you're going to do to them. You're going to mitigate their risks, and you're going to uh, create some long-term value for them. And this is precisely why they've come to you. When you can reframe your compliance cost as an insurance against catastrophic financial exposures, you're going to take a lead in this case. Whenever some cost optimizer comes to you and say that what's your best price, generally what is proved to be a very good tactic is that you tell them your fees, and you say that look, this fees is not for getting this compliance done. This is a safety from the penalty that you might face. For example, if the audit is not done on time, you might face a fees penalty of 1.5 lakh rupees. Or for example, if the filings are not done on time, for example, if the uh, let's say registrations are not done on time, you might certainly face this type of issues, or you might face this type of problems. You might encounter this, and you can very, very simply tell them in the uh, terms of time frame it is going to take them to recover that cost, that unnecessary cost. For example, sir, my fees, if not uh, borne by you, is going to be equal to 5 years of penalty that might be charged on you. So if you don't pay my fees on time this year, so the penalty that you might face is going to be 5 years of my fees clubbed together at once. Which one would you like? Again, give them an option. Giving an option also always works. So what actually works for such type of people, uh, you can present some concrete examples of how, uh, you know by penny to penny you have saved costs for such people. You can very categorically tell them that this is how I was able to save cost for you. This is how I was able to uh, sort of navigate through the non-compliance, and this is how I was able to put in some good efforts for you. Uh, Through your discussion, through the entire course of discussion, the amount of fees or the discussion of fees should be reduced. The discussion should rather be on value addition, or the discussion should rather be on how non-compliance is going to create a penal provision for them. This is going to sort of work in a larger scenario to a great extent. So how to deal with the cost optimizer? I personally learned it the hard way, because I usually got frustrated at the beginning because of the constant nagging, constant negotiations. And precisely what I said was that this is not a vendor shop. You can definitely get the work done, or you can take the other route. I learned it the hard way that such people have a certain reason to behave the way they are doing. And then once I realized this, I sort of immediately shifted my approach. And then my approach became, uh, if this person understands in terms of monetary things only, let's make him understand in terms of monetary things only. But the discussion should not be about my fees. The discussion should be the amount of penalties that they could be paying if the compliance is not done properly. Also, such type of cost optimizers, they're not paying for your fees to get the compliance done. They also are paying the fees for the value addition. So also you can demonstrate the value addition that you are going to make to their businesses. That's again a very easy step to deal through cost optimizers. The next one is the ideal scenario, the trust based partner. Now, this type of uh, client is a rare client. I'll come to this client in the last bit, because I feel that such type of discussion should be done at the end, and it's not a very difficult to handle such type of client. The only thing is difficult is how to retain that client, right? What not to do to let such client go, because this type of client is going to uh, trust you on a lot of things. This type of client is going to discuss a lot of things with you. This type of client is going to take help of your advices, and this type of client is actually going to sort of uh, make meaning of your advices. So how to retain this type of client and how not to let go this type of client is something that we can do in the later part of the session. Let's move to the seventh part, which is the seventh type of client. And this is a very common client that all of us have seen. This is the last minute firefighter. So today is 30th of December. It's about 1:23 p.m. as of now. Now, I surely cannot see how many participants are reacting to this, how my participants putting the questions, but uh, if if I were to ask you, have you got the data of your entire client base? Now, I am assuming that since you're already watching this webcast live, if you're watching, then you're already a bit peaceful at the compliance part, and you might have done all the compliances beforehand completed. But sir, haven't we faced this type of last minute firefighter that will come to you in a manner of urgency? They'll come to you creating all sorts of uh, excuses why they could not come earlier, and then uh, they'll also want you to take the decisions very quickly. Okay, what is their core concern? How or why do they behave this way? Well, this type of client is very different from the one that we discussed earlier. That was the overwhelmed person. Overwhelmed person was a very bona fide person. Means he wanted to do the compliance, unfortunately could not be able to do because of the work that he has got. This type of person is a simply lazy person. There's no justification for his behavior. This last minute firefighter is going to come to you this year very late. You'll have all the discussion in the world that next year we'll get it done on time, and he's definitely going to show you a thumbs up that, sir, next year you won't have to say a word to me. Next year, I'll be right on time. I'll probably be the first one to come up with my accounts or first one to come up with my documents and data. Guess what? He'll again be the last one because it's a habit that he has inculcated in himself, and this habit cannot be changed. What you can do is very, very simple. What actually works for you is clear communication. There are two things that you can do actually with this firefighter. One of them is clear communication in terms of requesting for the data, for getting all the things right in time. The second one, which will actually work for you, is premium pricing. You can charge premium pricing for this last minute firefighter. But most of the professionals, they sometimes choose to ignore such type of clients and say, no, sir, we are closed for this year. For example, this 31st of December, and we are not doing any audits after 20th, or we are not doing any 990 after 28th. So the last 3 days we have reserved specifically for the family. Okay. So there's also a committee on promoting work-life balance. That committee has specifically taught us to devote enough time for our family as well. So we do have certain family obligations as well. We are not going to spend the night of 31st doing your work because you're not responsible on time. So we're not going to spend any of our time. That time we are going to spend with our families and friends, and we are going to enjoy uh, to our extent. That client can only be tackled by premium pricing if at all you're willing to handle such type of client. So if you're willing to handle such type of client, that type of client is definitely uh, going to be tackled by some premium pricing. You can charge whatever you want, not whatever you want, but you can charge such definitely premium 1.5 2x, and that is the only way you're going to tackle such type of client because anyhow they need to get the compliance done. Anyhow, they are not going to be able to change their behaviors the next year also. So the only thing that you must do is to value your time. There's a very simple law. Please hear me out here. Please hear me out here. There's a very simple law that availability should not translate into abundance. What do I mean by that is many times it has been mentioned at different forums that as chartered accountants, we must be available to our clients around the clock. Sure, fine enough, fair enough. But availability should not translate into abundance means that you can reach out to me whenever you want, but my response is going to be on the time that I prefer. Means that if you're going to reach out to me at 11 o'clock in the night, I cannot be responding to you at 11 o'clock in the night. I'll respond to you when I see the message in the morning. My availability is there for you, but it is not something that you can take for granted. My availability is based on the working hours which I have and which I've established very clearly. And there's also a very important need to establish a clear boundary between your working and your professional and personal life. So that's why probably this committee that we've had uh, is been promoting this work-life balance as well. And why not? Because at the end, as I mentioned in the first slide itself, the first prerequisite of joining the session is that we're all humans. So as humans, why can I not charge some premium price for offering my services at a premium for the late firefighters? And that's the only thing you're going to tackle this firefighter. You either choose not to do their work at all, in which state you must be very clear in your communication that look, no matter when you turn up, we are not going to handle your work this year. uh, that is one very good communication that you should do, and that should be of course mentioned in your first communication that please provide your data within this time. Okay, this is the deadline that we are setting up for you, and if you don't provide your data within this deadline, and add a grace period in your head. Do not mention the grace period, but yes, add a grace period in your head. If you do not receive the data within that time, do two things: either refuse that at all, and if you still want to work with that, of course you should charge premium pricing. Because if you charge the normal that you've been charging around about the year, the person is not going to improve their habits, and the person is not going to take a different route. The person is definitely going to take up the same route again. And you know what, once you realize before you realize, it's too late for you to say no. And you won't have just one firefighter like this, you'll have an abundance of these firefighters. So your availability should not translate into abundance. You are available, but that does not mean you are available round the clock. That does not mean you can be approached at any time and you can respond to them at the same time. So that's a very, very important law that all of us must adhere to. So implementing firm cutoff policies with clear communication and communication about consequences should work with such type of firefighters, last minute firefighters, right? Then the next type of client is a very interesting one, and I've had some experience with this type of client as well. That they are going to be selective truth teller. They do not follow the true spirit of AS1. AS1 is accounting standard one about disclosures, right? So they come to you telling you only the things that they want to tell you, not the entire context. So what happens is that uh, they give you the picture, but they paint a picture only in a manner that suits them. I've had instance where such selective truth teller came to me, and he wanted to get their books of accounts completed by us, and they gave all their day book, they gave all their documents, and asked us to complete their books of accounts. Now, throughout completion, they kept on nagging on these things, these things. In the end, what I actually found out, their core motivation was that they only wanted to file their income tax returns so that they could get the refund of the TDS that has been deducted on their interest part. Now, maintaining proper books of accounts was not their agenda in the first goal itself, right? Their only agenda was to get the income tax return filed so that they could have this type of TDS refunded to them. Now, how do you handle such type of client? First of all, you need to identify such type of client, and it's very, very difficult to identify this selective truth teller because they are not going to disclose everything to you. You'll have to make out on your own. And again, as I mentioned before, that we are not retail counters that the customer comes and goes. The client is there to stay, so you can obviously ask questions. Now, it's important for us to frame a proper understanding of what the client entails and what their organization is all about, what work they're doing, what are their motivations for getting the work done, what are their motivations to approach us, and what type of services are they looking for. Why they are selective truth tellers is because probably they want to protect their image, maintain their reputation, and if their reputation, if they disclose everything, probably their reputation might get a hit. But as I've mentioned, that we being financial doctors require the utmost transparency in every manner. The transparency from the client side and the transparency from our side are both very important. Their primary concern is that we are going to judge them. Now, you don't expect a doctor to judge you when you go for an ailment. When you go for a treatment, the doctor doesn't judge you. And so the financial doctor is not going to judge you looking at your balance sheets, looking at your books of accounts. The financial doctor is only going to advise you how to make them in a proper manner. They're not going to judge you for the rash decisions, for the bad decisions that you have taken, or you might have taken up till now. What you can do is try and not criticize them, first of all. Their disclosures are usually in layers. This is something that you might encounter about them, that the disclosures are usually in layers. For example, uh, the sensitive information they are not going to reveal at the first hand. They are going to tell you the basic thing. You need to keep them asking questions. And what are the verbal cues of finding such type of a person? They repeatedly say one more thing. I forgot to mention, and also to add. So they're also adding some layers. Okay. Usually they are very hesitant speaking. They are a bit nervous, and nervousness you can gauge from their faces as well. You can gauge nervousness from the sort of eye contact that they make. They avoid usual eye contacts. They're not very firm. They are very timid in their behavior in terms of what they want to communicate. The communication is really you know limited to their environment only. What you can do as a professional to this selective truth teller is that once you identify such type of uh, selective truth teller that who's not going to disclose everything to you at once, the best thing that you can do with that selective truth teller is to create genuine psychological safety net. How you can do that? You can actually address the elephant in the room. You can actually talk about the rash decisions that they have taken in a non-judgmental manner. You can also quote examples of people who have also done this. You can also, the only thing that you should do or should be looking to do is to make them feel comfortable to get the truth out of them. So it starts with building the trust. It starts with building small, low stake disclosures. You can also give your own example, how you probably made a rash decision. Now, this example need not be true. And one of the finest lines that probably I've heard in terms of storytelling was by famous cricket commentator Mr. Harsha Bhogle, where he mentioned at one instance is that never let truth come in the way of a great story. And that's a fine goal that if everything is going fine, you need not curb the dramatics of a story by being very truthful about it. And you need not be accurate about all the points. So that's something that a storyteller takes into consideration, right? You can normalize the mistake that people make. You can share how other people, or if, for instance, you probably have made some financial mistake that is going to allow them to open up. You can reward transparency by acknowledging their courage and provide solutions. So once you listen to their problem and once you provide the solution that look, this is not such a big problem as you were contemplating. This is something that many people do. So we do have some solution for that. Let's sit and let's try and find out the solution for this. So once you start to reward that transparency, the client starts to feel much more at home. Then at the same time, you should never at all allow the trust to be lost or never breach their trust or use their information against them. At some point of the time later in the conversation, you might counter them by saying that earlier you mentioned this. Because let me tell you, the selective truth teller is also a storyteller. He might also cook some stories for you, and he might also, for example, he has got some big income tax notice, right? Or he has got some FEMA notices, he has got some foreign assets disclosure to be done, which is not doing so. As chartered accountants, as professionals, your liability remains to get the best out of it and get all the information. Now, as professional courtesy, it is suggested that you disclaim that you need not get everything from the gentleman, but for a uh, practical purpose, what you must be doing is that saving yourself at all costs by getting the disclosures out of the person. So what normally works for such type of person is that when you ask them non-judgmental questions, okay, you share examples. Those examples might be true or not. Uh, you provide them explicit confidentiality assurance. Also, the DPDP Act is going to be helpful in this case. That you tell them that whatever we are discussing as of now is strictly confidential. You can tell me everything, and you can also give some examples of how when people were honest about their financial when people were honest about their stories, they actually served a greater purpose for themselves. So this is something that you can do with the selective truth teller, right? Now, one of the other type of clients that we generally face is the authority resistant client who does not like the narrative that is being created by you. The biggest cue of such type of client is when they start asking that is this required, or do we have to do this way only, Can't we do that way? Okay. Usually they are sitting like this, folded arms, crossed arms, uh, their eyebrows being arched in a particular manner. They are usually people who have made it on their own. Uh, the term that they have is skepticism. They are skeptic to a large extent to what probably you are going to offer to them. And that skepticism might have served them something good in the past, because of which they have that sort of confidence over their skepticism ability. So when you actually come across such type of authority resistant client, okay, as a human, it's very common, it's very normal to feel frustrated or to feel aghasted by the type of questions that they put over your authority. But at the same time, it's important to realize that this is not a employer-employee relationship. It's a CA-client relationship, which requires the person to trust you first. And to how to build that trust is again a very very simple method that I mentioned before. Not issue directives, give them choices. They are usually skeptic in terms of taking decisions from you, taking orders from you. But the best thing that you can do is to be transparent with them, that this thing is going to work, this thing is not going to work. Secondly, when they're asking their questions, let them frame their questions in the most clear manner as possible, because such type of persons usually they might they might ask some questions to you which are not framed properly as they intended to, and then the response you are giving, they might use them against you. So the best part, which I generally follow, and which probably uh, most of our colleagues also follow, is to ask them to properly frame their questions in a manner that both of you are on the same page. Both of you are actually looking to understand the exact problem and react to the exact same problem and create a common solution. So that type of uh, authority resistant line, how do you again uh, avoid is authoritative language. You avoid top down directives. You again present compliance as a choice that protects their autonomy rather than restricts it. So you have to frame compliance as a self chosen environment where you tell them that if you are going to comply with this, you're going to face all these peace of mind, or you're going to face some, you're not going to face any problems, or you're going to experience all the good things that you can definitely experience peace of mind at the end, and show them how rules actually create competitive advantages and prevent government interference in their day-to-day businesses and in their day-to-day lives. So to ensure that this happens, the best way you can do is to again give them a choice, that look, these are the options that you have, and you can take any one which you prefer, and as per your suggestions we are going to move ahead. So these type of authority resistant clients are uh, definitely, I should not say difficult to handle, but needs to be tactically handled. And the psychology is very, very simple, that they want everything to be questioned in terms of whether do we really need this, whether do we really want this, or uh, whatever we are doing, is it really necessary or is it really required? So tell them politely that this is the task, and whatever we are doing is because of the requirement of this certain law, this requirement of this compliance, right? So this is how to deal with an authority resistant client. The next one is a very interesting one. The next one says, "आप जानो आपका काम जाने." What do you mean? We mean that he is very similar to that last minute firefighter, but he has his own ability, that he sort of dumps this client sort of dumps everything on you and asks you to be picture perfect in terms of whatever you're trying to do. There is a clear distinction between this delegator without ownership and that last minute firefighter. It is said that 89% of the accounting accountability disputes arise from unclear ownership boundaries. For example, I'll take a very simple example, that a client approaches me saying that, "Sir, you handle everything, you handle my books of accounts." I said, "Fine, okay then." So we are handling their books of accounts, they're filing their GST returns on a timely basis. Now what happens? Now they get a GST notice, right? And that GST notice must be replied to. We are since handling their accounts, we also must handle their GST notice. Yes. Is there a communication about it? Because at the end, what they are probably trying to do to get a whole package from you, that you are giving them their services of giving them peace of mind. That is not going to happen. What you need to do is you need to understand this client assumes that as soon as he is transferring this payment, as soon as this UPI or this check is written in your name, or as he hands over you to cash, the whole responsibility is transferred to you. Now, once they assume that the responsibility is transferred to you, they are not just giving their books of accounts to you. They are not just uh, giving their all the compliance to you. They're also effectively shouldering you with all the worries of their compliances with their books of accounts. Now, as a professional, you cannot be taking this type of ownership without proper delegation. And uh, I had also one very simple, similar example that I must share. That a gentleman visited my office quite a few years ago, and what he did was that he said that I've been working on this trust, and I've created some documents. I've got this documents, and I want you to have a look at it, and then suggest me how to get the best out of it. I said fine. Now the gentleman, he kept his documents at my office, and then he never turned up again. He only kept asking a few things on call, or he kept asking sometime or the other that I'm going to do this, whether I do this or not. After a couple of years, he came back and he asked for the documents. Some of the documents, not all of the documents. That is when I realized that the gentleman was using me as a locker room. He was simply there not to take any advice from me. He was not there to get anything out of me, but he was there to use my office as a simple locker room where he knew that the documents would be placed under utmost confidentiality, and the documents would be preserved in a proper manner, because he probably did not have an office of his own, or he did not have a trust on the people whom with whom he was residing at the moment. So he did not want to keep the documents with himself, so he kept the documents at my place, and for 2 years without rent, I was actually securing his documents, and that happened. That was a real thing that happened. So how do I deal with that? How do I deal with that? I learned it the hard way, and then I started documenting everything in terms of what are the clear boundaries, right? If there is a delegation, there must be ownership, and if there is an ownership, there must be delegation. There are these things are not mutually exclusive. These things must be meeting at a common place. What I started to do is I started to define very clearly what is the ownership. In the early stages itself, when you clearly identify the ownership part, it becomes very easy for both of you and your client to sort of agree on a similar thing. The best way it is done is in a written responsibility and approval checkpoints. Okay. So how do I do this? I request the client usually to issue a work order to me, or I sort of give out an engagement letter where we have very clearly identified what are the common points that we agree to that my services are going to be about. And at the same time, when my services are not about other things, I do not mention them. I explicitly say that these and these are the only things that I'm going to be responsible about. So this delegated without ownership is a very dangerous trend that has been coming up in the recent past. How to avoid this very clearly is something that must be taken care by the members. Next part is the comparison shopper, and it's very similar to the cost optimizer that we studied at point number 5. But this comparison shopper, his motivation is simple to what a retail customer does, right? When you go out in a market and you're looking to buy a phone, What do? You look at Amazon, right? You look at Flipkart, you look at other sources as well. Then you reach out to the shop, the offline shop. But you don't buy from the first shop that you visit. You come out, you get the price, you come out, you go to the next shop, you ask the price again, you negotiate. You see to what extent can you negotiate. And while negotiating, you're definitely using the first person's price against the second person. So this is a very common trait of the comparison shopper. And that type of client very frequently offers or visits our offices, that try to actually uses the uh, the fees quotations of one person against the other person. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with such a person? If I may ask, Pragya ma'am, uh, such type of client is someone who often visits our office, who's a comparison shopper. How do you deal with such a client? If I may ask, ma'am, your
Yes,
insights.
yes. They definitely compare with the other charters and all. I
Hmm.
agree to it.
And how do we deal with that, ma'am? Any insights?
Sir, we just give what kind of services we are going to provide you, and we
Hmm.
just disclose what they are getting outside. So
True.
you just differentiate between this, and this is your choice.
Absolutely.
We are not the people, or we are not the as a shop, or we are not selling
Hmm.
any product. We are going to provide you services, and depends on my services. There is no negotiations.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that insight. And this is exactly what I also wanted to communicate, that let them make their own decision, right? We're not going to force, we're not going to impose anything on them. Let us only let us only disclose what our service is going to be about, and let them make the decision. Because at the end of the day, as I've mentioned a lot of times in this session, we're not retail outlets, we're not retail corners. We are providing them services, and those services, of course, comes with a cost. And the cheapest does not always mean the best. So that is something that they have to take account on. So again, as I mentioned, that this type of person, handling this type of person is very very simple. That what you do is you remove the discussion from the fees, remove the focus from the fees part to the scope part and the outcome part. When you position yourself very clearly that this is what I'm supposed to do and this is something what I'll be doing in this manner, then it becomes really easy for both of you to actually decide on a common platform. And what I should also mention here, with all due respect, that there are going to be a lot of assignments that you're going to undertake. There are also going to be a lot of assignments you're going to miss. Please do not the assignment you miss, because you are not supposed to take each and every assignment that comes to your office. That's a really really important thing that anybody must realize, anybody must accept, that you cannot be accepting each and every assignment that comes to your office. You need to simply you'll be accepting only those who are meant for you. And I'll give an analogy in this manner. The great Sachin Tendulkar, he has played about 664 international matches, right? In those 664 international matches, he has scored a century in 100 of those, right? Of course, the great man has 100 centuries. But this also means that there were 564 matches where he could not score a century. So that means every time he gets onto the bat, does not mean that he has to score a century every time. There also have been instances, there have been more than 50 instances where he has scored nothing. He has uh, scored less than 10 runs. That means he could not take the opportunity. He could not grab the opportunity. He could not capitalize on that. But you're not never judged by the opportunities that you do not undertake. You're only judged by how big a impact you make when you actually undertake those responsibilities. So it's important to realize that you're again humans. You're all humans. And as humans, you are only going to accept those assignments who are truly meant for you. You cannot accept each and every assignment that comes your way. So with this, the last type of client type which I have encountered is the one who is growing at a rapid speed, and a speed beyond his comprehension, and at a speed with which his compliances are not able to grow. He's scaling very fast. Such type of clients also need to be handled with care, and for that client all you need to do is you need to realize this type of client is going to take ad hoc decisions. His focus is going to be on expansion. His focus is not going to be on compliance. So when you encounter such type of client, what you can do for the best thing is slow them down strategically, not slow them down in their success or in their pace. You need to slow them down strategically, that you introduce intentional decision gates that force thoughtful evaluation before taking any decision. So when you allow them to take decisions rather than simply uh, get the work done, that actually helps them in a big manner. Second, you have to build a process infrastructure with them. When you build an infrastructure of what all compliances can we do, what all needs to be done, establish documented workflows, approval chains, that also helps to manage growth with scale. Then you can of course implement some dashboard visibility. You can of course utilize some of the documented automated softwares, Power BI and something like that, so that they can have the visibility of what all they have been doing, whether they've been doing it correctly or not, or whether you have any inputs for them or not. Then phase out major initiatives. Okay, break ambitious goals into manageable steps with clear milestones and success criteria at each point, so that they have a feeling of what all they have achieved. So I think that's it. And these are all 12 types of clients that we have. And very quickly, I'll give a brief of what we have covered. Three agendas we started with: understanding 7 laws of human psychology, to understand 12 type of client structures that we can face in our practice, and how to navigate through those 12 clients, how to work around your way through those 12 clients, is something that I've shared through my personal experience. Human psychology is very, very important for the study of human mind, and also for establishing a successful CA client relationship. It is said that sections convince the mind, psychology wins the client. So that's it from my side. Thank you for patient listening. Any questions, if at all, we have, we might
Sir,
take them.
we have one question. It is in your chat box. Most CA have chronic latecomers. We have complex cases with large capital gain and business transaction also sending his data on 29th evening. How to cope with this such client?
There are two ways, ma'am. There are two ways. Uh, Again, the decision needs to be yours. The first way is you need to decide whether to accept such a client or not, because as you mentioned, there are chronic latecomers. They're not late just this year. They're going to be late next year as well, or next year as well, for them, taking the match to the last over is something that they enjoy. But it takes away your peace of mind, so you need not cope up with that. So there are two ways to deal with such a clients. First is, either if you want to value your peace of mind above anything else, you can of course say no. You can of course say that no, sir, we are done for this year. We're done for this year, and you have a clear deadline that by this date, if you do not uh, come up with your data, you do not come up with your, for example, capital gains, or you do not come up with your entire structure, we're not going to be able to serve you this year. If at all you still wish to serve those clients, definitely you should be charging a premium price. You should be charging, or you can also notify them, sir, by 25th, if we have done with this, we can move ahead. But after this, since our staff is not going to be about there, because it's 30th of December today, and I must assume that most of the staff also would want to celebrate the new year with their families. So you cannot be asking all the staff to work 31st December every year, and that's a understanding that the client also must get. So again, you and me are the ones who have to deal with this. So definitely some sort of filters maybe could help, or adding some sort of premium prices might change their habits for the times to come.
Thank you, sir. And it's again absolute pleasure me to give vote of thanks to you, sir. And it has been such an honor to be part of this wonderful webcast on mind mapping, decoding client psychology, organized by the Professional Skill Enrichment Committee of ICAI. And on behalf of the Professional Skill Enrichment Committee ICI, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, Rupal Garg sir, for his enlightening session and a wide round of applause. And thanks to the organizer, Professional Skill Enrichment Committee of ICI, our today's speaker, CA Rupal Garg sir, and other stakeholders made the webcast a memorable one. And finally, we would like to thank all of you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining. And I must also extend my New Year wishes to everyone, including ma'am, to the
Yes, sir.
committee as well. I wish that 2026 brings a lot of joy and success and happiness to each one of us. May God bless all of us. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Yes, yes.